Before him lay a bottomless cliff. A single misstep would mean certain death. Yet Li Fan didn't hesitate. His expression remained unchanged as he took that first step forward. He did not plummet. The vast sea of clouds stretching before him appeared to possess its own awareness, swirling and coalescing beneath Li Fan's feet to firmly support him. He then stepped forward with his other foot. Once both were firmly placed, the surging white clouds propelled Li Fan onward, carrying him deep into the vast sea of clouds. Watching Li Fan's departing figure, immortal master, he couldn't help but mutter under his breath. Such remarkable composure. What a pity he's already so old, truly a waste of talent. The young cultivators gazed at Li Fan as he rode the clouds into the distance. Only then did realization strike them. Immortal master, his earlier words held no falsehood or overstatement. A deep sense of shame surged through them. Those who step into the spirit pool first will claim a larger portion of the spiritual liquid. Hurry along now, don't linger. Immortal master, he said, his stern expression easing as he spoke to the group. A frantic scramble ensued as the youths rushed toward the sea of clouds. Surrounded by the dense, churning sea of clouds, Li Fan completely lost all sense of direction. The white clouds kept converging around him, becoming ever thicker. In a short time, they condensed into a pure white spiritual liquid that fully enveloped him. Immersed in it, Li Fan felt no trace of suffocation. On the contrary, an extraordinary warmth and comfort wrapped around him, like a fetus nestled in its mother's womb. Li Fan's mind and spirit gradually relaxed to the utmost. But soon, the warmth intensified into a searing heat. The searing heat became a scalding burn. The scalding burn transformed into the agony of being roasted by raging flames. Taken utterly by surprise, Li Fan let out a miserable scream. In that moment, he completely lost control over his body. All he could feel was a searing, lava-hot torrent surging wildly through his veins, viciously ripping and burrowing into every nerve. The agony far surpassed what any mortal could bear. His instincts urged him desperately to activate return to truth, yet he clenched his teeth and forcibly held back the impulse. Li Fan's consciousness began to fracture under the extreme torment, yet a stubborn, unyielding obsession held him together, preventing the total collapse of his mind. He shouted loudly. 300 years of bitter pursuit. Wasn't it all for this very moment? No matter what, I will not give up. I will cultivate immortality. I will achieve eternal life. Before long, the torment escalated to an indescribable extreme, a blade that stripped his soul bare 10,000 times over, and then 10,000 times again. It was unending, unceasing agony, no matter how ironclad Li Fan's willpower, against pain of such overwhelming intensity. His defenses gradually began to falter, even at this critical juncture. His deep-seated obsession made him hold on and refuse to activate return to truth. Li Fan's consciousness gradually stilled. The Xianhuan Heart Clarification Sutra, which he had cultivated tirelessly day and night since arriving on Liuli Island, began circulating of its own accord. As it operated, his scattered awareness found an anchor and slowly regathered, growing steadier and stronger. Though still devoid of conscious thought, his mind became firm and unshakable, like a reef standing resolute against relentless wind and waves. 3 days blurred by. Gazing at the swirling illusory clouds before him, Zheng Hao sank into deep contemplation. Of the 13 who entered the body purification spirit pool, 11 had already emerged. Only 4 had successfully purged the immortal mortal miasma from their bodies. The other 7 failed to withstand the agonizing pain. 1 even perished. The last one still inside was, of course, Li Fan. The immortal mortal miasma was deeply embedded in a mortal's bloodline, coexisting with their flesh and blood since the fetus formed. The older one was, the more tightly entwined it became. Thus, purging it required more cycles of destruction and reconstruction, bringing unimaginable pain. Sensing that faint, almost imperceptible aura within the spirit pool array, Zheng Hao grew increasingly astonished. The unyielding strength of this man's willpower is truly terrifying. If he successfully purifies his body, achieving foundation establishment will pose no challenge to him. He may even condense a golden core. Zheng Hao's eyes lit up. Perhaps I should establish a good relationship with him ahead of time. Another 3 days passed. Seeing that Li Fan still had not emerged, Zheng Hao was struck speechless with shock. If not for being able to sense Li Fan's stable vital aura within the array, he would have gone in long ago. Another 3 days went by. But there was nothing to be done. The body purification array couldn't be interrupted arbitrarily. He could only continue to wait. By this time, the materials needed to sustain the array's operation were nearly depleted. If they ran out completely, the array would be forced to stop, resulting in unpredictable consequences. All the prior efforts of those still inside the spirit pool could end up going to waste. In theory, if the array ceased functioning right now, it would simply be Li Fan's misfortune, and no responsibility would fall on He Zhenghao. Yet, recalling Li Fan's terrifyingly unyielding willpower, a flurry of emotions flickered across He Zhenghao's face. Never mind, let's just bet on this kid achieving greatness in the future. With that, He Zhenghao formed a series of hand seals. One item after another flew out from his storage ring, vanishing into the depths of the sea of clouds. After another 2 days had passed, the churning sea of clouds finally began to calm. White clouds danced and clustered together, carrying Li Fan back to the mountain peak. He Zhenghao swept his divine sense over Li Fan. Finding no trace of the miasma within his body, he finally let out a sigh of relief. He Zhenghao said warmly, "Congratulations, young friend. Your shackles are now gone, and the path to immortality lies before you." Li Fan was still adapting to his newly transformed body, feeling unprecedented vitality. However, he found Immortal Master He's abrupt shift in attitude quite strange. Though he had purged the immortal miasma, he had yet to begin true cultivation and remained immortal. Why, then, was the Immortal Master treating him with such courtesy? Noticing Li Fan's puzzled expression, Immortal Master He understood the unspoken question and explained that Li Fan had remained in the body purification spirit pool for a full 11 days. Li Fan was genuinely startled. "What, I was in there for that long?" Immortal Master He seized the opportunity to highlight his contribution. "Indeed, young friend, you may not know this." But Li Fan's mind was reeling for another reason, not Immortal Master He's so-called selfless sacrifice, but the sight of a new technique on Return to Truth's panel. The Xianhuang Heart Clarification Sutra he had always practiced had somehow turned into the Xianhuang Heart Refinement Sutra. His maximum biological age had broken through the 100-year threshold and was still showing a temporary upward trend. What surprised Li Fan even more was that his psychological age limit had nearly doubled, reaching over 2,000 years. The Xianhuang Heart Clarification Sutra had become the Heart Refinement Sutra. Li Fan himself was utterly confused, but now wasn't the time to examine it closely. Steadying his mind, Li Fan cupped his hands respectfully toward He Zhenghao and said, "I dare not forget the kindness you have shown me, Immortal Master. I, Li Fan, will repay you generously in the future." He Zhenghao had been waiting for these very words. His tone grew even more amiable. "What are you saying, young friend? The path of immortality is arduous. I merely helped where I could." He produced a book and handed it to Li Fan. "After expelling miasma, the next step is to sense the spiritual qi of heaven and earth and draw it into your body. If you can coalesce the first strand of spiritual qi within yourself, it means you have entered the qi refinement realm and can officially be called a cultivator. This 5 spirits qi sensing method is a summary of your predecessor's experiences in sensing spiritual qi. Study it well." He then solemnly handed Li Fan a square spirit talisman. "This is a mundane leaving talisman. Until you successfully draw qi into your body, you must keep it on you at all times. Although you have purged the miasma, it is not permanent. Living among mortals and interacting with them daily will gradually contaminate you again. This talisman can shield you from miasma intrusion, but its protection lasts only about 5 years." After watching Li Fan safely store both items, He Zhenghao explained further. "Once you break through to the qi refinement realm, you can come look for me on the island. I will then take you to our Myriad Immortals Alliance's headquarters in the Tsongyan Sea, Myriad Immortals Island. There, you will be able to select appropriate techniques to continue your cultivation." He Zhenghao detailed various precautions during the process of drawing qi into the body, and Li Fan committed each one firmly to memory. After all relevant matters were concluded, Li Fan tactfully took his leave. He Zhenghao murmured to himself, watching Li Fan's retreating figure, "I hope this investment yields returns." Then, he surveyed the mountain beneath his feet and shook his head. Its potential is exhausted. Time to find a new mountain. With that, he soared above the sea of clouds and gathered the rolling mist into his sleeve with a wave. Gazing down at the mountain range below, He Zhenghao began pondering over which peak would grow the tallest over the next century. He Zhenghao cultivated a technique known as the mountain-sitting art. The greatest feature of the mountain-sitting art was that practitioners could gain benefits simply by sitting atop a mountain. One would choose a peak, sit there, activate the technique, and spend years harmonizing their aura with the mountains. Thereafter, for every inch the mountain grew taller, the practitioner's cultivation would receive corresponding feedback and advance accordingly. Beyond benefiting from a mountain's growth, he could also gain advantages from aiding others. For instance, by helping Li Fan, He Zhenghao would mysteriously receive feedback if Li Fan were to break through to the Qi refinement realm in the future, thereby improving his own cultivation. It wasn't about plundering or absorbing another's cultivation. Rather, it resembled the old adage, when one person attains the Tao, even his chickens and dogs ascend to heaven. The effort he put in at the beginning would directly decide the scale of the rewards he reaped later. Thus, whenever He Zhenghao spotted a talented junior, he never hesitated to offer his assistance. After exiting the central array of Lili Island, Li Fan returned quietly to the Quietude Manor without alerting anyone. Li Fan eagerly wished to start cultivating right away, but first, he needed to examine the mysterious Xianhuang Heart Refinement Sutra that had appeared. Searching his mind, he found no new operating method, so he began practicing it using the same approach as the Xianhuang Heart Clarification Sutra. The instant he started, he immediately sensed the clear difference between the Heart Refinement Sutra and the Heart Clarification Sutra. Previously, when practicing the Heart Clarification Sutra, it often took him more than an hour to calm his mind and clear away all distracting thoughts. But with the Heart Refinement Sutra, Li Fan felt his heart turn as clear and still as a mirror within moments. And cultivating the Heart Refinement Sutra, he could clearly feel his spirit strengthening with every passing moment. A surge of astonishment and delight washed over Li Fan, followed by countless questions. Why had the Xianhuang Heart Clarification Sutra, a common technique to dispel miasma that was found everywhere in the cultivation world, transformed into this miraculously profound Xianhuang Heart Refinement Sutra within him? Immortal techniques could only be cultivated exclusively, so did this Heart Refinement Sutra even count as a cultivation technique? He stood on the precipice of becoming a true cultivator, just one step away from crossing the threshold, and now he had even obtained a miraculous technique like the Xianhuang Heart Refinement Sutra. Li Fan couldn't help but feel a wave of soaring elation. Not long later, a letter arrived. The news it contained shattered his burgeoning pride into dust. Xiao Heng had successfully guided Qi into his body and had already departed for Myriad Immortals Island. I have no real interest in immortal cultivation. The memory of Xiao Heng's tone as he said those words was still vivid in Li Fan's mind.